Hi everybody, I am Mrs. Perry and today we're going to be learning how to assemble a part of your saxophone. The gooseneck, the mouthpiece, the ligature, and the reed are what help us make a sound on the whole instrument when we go to put it together. So the first thing that we need to do whenever you're going to play your instrument is to make sure that your case is facing the correct direction so that your instrument doesn't go flying out of your case and get hurt. So I have behind me my saxophone case and you can see a few things on here. On most cases, there's some writing, and that's how I know that it's facing the right direction. I want that writing to be facing up toward the ceiling when I play. So I'm going to take my case here and put it on a flat, sturdy surface. I'm going to use the bookshelf behind me, but you might put it on the floor or on a table, anywhere that you know that it's safe and sturdy. So I'm going to set that case with that sticker or that writing facing up toward the ceiling. And then this handle that I carry it by and the latches are facing toward me when I go to put it together. So let's just check one more time. We have the writing facing the ceiling, I have the handle facing me, and so are the latches. To open that case, I'm going to pull up on those latches from the bottom. They unclip, and then the hooks will come right off. I'm going to slowly, gently open the top of that case, and I'm holding it the whole time to make sure that it doesn't go flopping backwards when I go to take out my instrument. So right now we're going to do just a part of your instrument to make sure that we get the proper embouchure, mouth shape, and make our sound before we try and put the whole thing together. So in my case, I should have a reed. And reeds usually come in little plastic cases like this. If it's the first time that you're using yours, there might be some like foil wrapping around it. If that's the case, just take the wrapping off. And then you can take the reed out of this case with 2 fingers. Now your reed has to be wet in order to play the right way, so you could stick it on your tongue like this. Or you could stick it in a little cup of water. I like to use the little cup of water so I know I'm not going to accidentally bite and break it. And they tend to last a little bit longer when you use water as well. So maybe at school it's not easy to do, but at home you might want to do that. So I'm just going to set this in my water. And my case for my reed, I'm just going to set back in my instrument case so it's there when I go to pack up my instrument. I need 2 pieces to my saxophone right now. I need the gooseneck, which is this curved part of the saxophone, the small piece. And I also need my mouthpiece. Now the mouthpiece might have a cap on it like mine does. It's just kind of like wearing a little hat there to keep it protected. So I'm going to take that off and just set it back in my case so I know that it's safe. On my mouthpiece is this silver part called a ligature. That's what's going to help hold the reed in the right position once we know that it's perfect. So I'm going to take off that ligature and just set it on the table where it's safe. To put my mouthpiece on my gooseneck, I need to be really careful. This part of the gooseneck here moves up and down, and it's made out of metal, but it can bend really easily if we're not careful. So when you're putting your mouthpiece on your gooseneck, we don't want to grab around that piece because it can bend it and break it so easily. So we have to be really careful to grab where we're not going to touch it or bend it. The bottom part of your gooseneck right here is the part that goes into your saxophone. There's this open circle, and then there's another circle. This is the part that the mouthpiece needs to go on. There's also a hole or a chamber on your mouthpiece. So to know that it's facing the right way, the hole on the bottom of your gooseneck, the bigger part, and the hole or the chamber in your mouthpiece should be pretty much lined up. That's how we know that it's facing the right way. So I'm really carefully trying not to touch that key, and you can grab at the bottom here as well if you need to, and I'm gently twisting and pushing on that mouthpiece, and now I know it's on, and I know that this key has been kept safe. So my reed has been soaking for a few minutes now, and so I know that it's ready to put on. So now I have to get that reed so it covers up this part of the mouthpiece or the chamber so I know that it'll vibrate properly. So here is my reed. If there's any little extra water on there, no big deal. Perfect. On the reed, you can see this curve right here, kind of looks like a smile, and that's kind of the top of the reed. And on this part, it's flat and there's a little bit of writing, so that's the back of the reed. We have to cover up this part in order to get the sound proper when we go to play it. So I take that back of the reed, the flat part, and I cover up that chamber or that hole on my mouthpiece. But I'm not quite done yet. I have to make sure that it's absolutely perfect and that it's not going to move. So I'm going to take my ligature, that metal piece, and put it really carefully over the gooseneck. But I always want to be extra, extra careful of that tip there because it's so delicate. So I never want to touch the very, very tip or allow the ligature to hit that tip because it can break and then you're going to need a new reed. And we need new reeds every once in a while, but we want to make them last as long as we can. So I keep the edge of the ligature as far away from the reed as I can, and I like to slide that ligature over. Now I need to loosen my screws a little bit for it to go all the way onto the mouthpiece. And you'll have to do that sometimes too. In order to make sure that the reed is lined up perfectly and we're going to make a great sound, we have to make sure a few things are true. So that opening on the mouthpiece has to be covered up perfectly side to side. I'm going to put this really close so you can see it well. So here we can see that we can't see any of the opening that used to be there. Again, I'm on the sides of my reed here so I don't touch that really delicate tip, but I want to show you what it looks like if it's not lined up the right way. So you might see, for example, a little space right over there. If it looks like that, I know that the chamber isn't covered up the right way, so I need to shift it. So I'm going to use my thumbs on the side and push it over just a little bit so that I know that that opening is covered up all the way. Now I have to make sure that the reed isn't too high and it isn't too low. So to make sure of that, if you look at the very tip that we're trying so hard not to touch the very top of, you can see this tiny, tiny, tiny little sliver of the black mouthpiece behind it. Then if I flip it around, we have kind of an optical illusion because you can see a tiny sliver of that reed popping up from the mouthpiece. We have to check a couple of more things. On the front of your mouthpiece is this curve right here, kind of looks like a ski slope. We go whoop. The ligature, or the metal part, needs to be low enough so we can see that entire ski slope or that entire curve. So mine isn't quite low enough. I need to loosen my screws, push down on my ligature a little bit, and then I can see that entire ski slope. On the back of the reed, we saw that smile before. We also need the ligature low enough so you can see that whole curve or that whole smile. So let's double check to make sure everything is absolutely perfect. We know that the reed is lined up side to side. It's not too high and it's not too low because I can see that tiny little bit of black and I can see that tiny little bit of mouthpiece. I can see the whole ski slope and I can see the whole smile on that reed. I just have to make sure that the screws on my ligature are smack dab down the middle of my reed, and then I'm ready to tighten the screws so the reed won't move. So I'm just twisting away from me to tighten up those screws, and then I know that my reed isn't going to move and that I'll be able to get a great sound. Beautiful. So that part is really tricky at first, but just like anything, once you practice it, it's not going to seem hard anymore. Now that this is put together the right way, we can make our embouchure or our mouth shape to get a sound. So first just listen to what it sounds like and then we'll learn how to make that shape with your mouth to make the sound. It's a little tugboaty, don't you think? So to make that shape or that embouchure, I need to take my bottom lip and cover up my teeth just the tiniest little bit on the bottom. So it kind of looks like I have no teeth when I'm doing it the right way. So I make a little pillow that I'm going to set my reed on. So my lip goes over and reed goes on my lip or my pillow. Teeth go on top, but not on the bottom. I breathe through my mouth. And then I close my mouth and I do that blowing sound. They were trying to make an announcement. So now that we know how to make that shape with that tiny piece over your teeth on the bottom, teeth on top, breathe through your mouth. Notice that my chin gets a little bit pointy. It kind of points a little bit toward my toes, almost like I'm whistling. And my muscles on the side here get firm, so my mouth is closed and none of the air can get out. Let's try it. So, little bit of lip over your teeth. Teeth on top. We'll breathe in through our mouths, close, and I'll flex my muscles here. I have to make sure that my stomach muscles get flexed a little bit too, so I have enough power to blow my air through. So, little pillow over my teeth. Teeth on top. Your turn, ready? See how long you can hold it for. Go ahead. Are you still going? How'd you do? Great. Now let's try some tongue taps or some articulation. That's how we start the sound. Can you echo me, please? Ready? Do, do, do. Do you feel your tongue hitting in your mouth? It should be right at the top behind your front teeth where you might burn your mouth if your pizza's too hot. Let's try again. Ready? Do, do, do. Great. Now instead of hitting on the top of my mouth, when I have my mouthpiece in my mouth, your tongue is going to hit just behind the front here, and you'll hear a clicking sound while my tongue taps it. Ready? I'll go first. See if you can hear it. Listen really carefully. Could you hear it? I'll go first, and then you try it after I do. Ready? Your turn. Here we go. Ready? Now I have to make that full sound and tap my tongue at the same time. Listen to what it'll sound like. Your turn. Ready? And you can tap your tongue in all sorts of different patterns. We are ready to put your instrument all the way together and make a full sound after you feel really comfortable with putting your reed on and making this first sound on your gooseneck and your mouthpiece. Practice hard.